So in this video, we'll be talking about the chat feature or the chat tab in the Obsidian-Assist tool. Um, yeah, so let's get right into it. Now, before I demonstrate the chat interface or the options basically, uh, let's look at the graph that was built during the node creation tutorial. So if I go over here, just to revisit, the red nodes are psychology, the green ones are from the organizational behavior textbook, and the blue ones are from the economics textbook. Yeah. So yeah, let's get right into it. Now, to begin with, I'll be demonstrating with this one node, which is like 577th segment in the organizational behavior textbook. That doesn't matter. The number doesn't matter. It's more like for ordering things. But the main topic of this is like conflict management strategies in organizations, right? So you would see inside the chat tab, there would be two options. One is a simple drag, just do a cosine similarity fetch, like a semantic search fetch, and then just like then just get the ones that are most similar to your question or query. Yeah, nothing that is based on your graph or connections that you created, right? This is like how basic RAG works, right? Normally for chat interfaces, I would recommend increasing the cosine distance because at that time you would want connections to be established because you would not write like a very detailed description of your query, right? I mean, if you are, then maybe you can keep it small, but in case you're normally chatting with it, you won't be writing paragraphs, right? So let's just increase this to maybe let's say 0.6. Yeah, I mean cosine distance, my bad, sorry. Yeah, so suppose, I mean, I note some questions over here. Yeah, like for example, this question: suggest some strategies for conflict prevention organizations. And there we have it, right? Pretty straightforward, right? Emphasize organization-wide goals, facilitate intergroup communication, avoid win-lose situations. And if you would look at this note, right, over here, it says that emphasize organization, avoid win-lose, etc., etc. So that is that. Now let's move on to the graph-based context. So uh, before I cover the graph-based part, like if you look at the README, and like later on these videos or links to them won't be in the README, but for now, as like this is what was covered. The first part was covered in the node creation tutorial. Now over here, we just covered the cosine similarity search, right? Now we'll be covering the graph-based contextual search, and over here it has three modes, right? Auto node traversal, which I'll be demonstrating soon, and then the fixed node start and the start to end part. But like yeah, they are like three sub versions if you would of like using graph-based context, and like it depends on how you configure. And basically all these three would determine how your context is built. So okay, first things first, whenever you come to the graph-based context, you have to give the path of your vault, right? Because like I mean, you could have like because you might want to isolate a specific directory or something. So what this would do is basically it will look for lots of markdown files, and then like it would look for those Obsidian tags or connections, and then it would build a graph within itself, right? So I have written down the vault path over here. So yeah, I mean, you could be a bit more specific. Like if you remember from the node creation tutorial, there was the economics directory, and then there was another psychology directory or a vault, if you would. So yeah, that's your call. But then you would click on initialize. Let's make sure there's no space over here. Yeah, click on initialize. Give it like 5 seconds, and this depends on how big your directory or vault is, right? But give it like 5 to 10 seconds, and once you see the start and end drop downs pop up, you're ready to go. And then yeah, so yeah, so what you would see over here is like all your nodes, like from the graph, right? They have been loaded up over there. Yeah. So yeah, now, so the first mode, right? And you would see it's very similar to what we just had. So let me just again strategies for conflict prevention organizations. So how is like when you haven't specified any start or end node, it will be using the first method over here, auto node traversal. So what will happen is like once you type a question in, it will do a cosine similarity search or a semantic search and basically get one node that matches your query, and then it will use all the and then it will build its context around that node on the basis of the edges you have established in your graph. Then like it will only use the cosine similarity search just to get that one node where it should start off from. Yeah, basically it will automatically determine the start node over here. Um, and I mean like start and end nodes will make more sense once I start covering them. So yeah, suggest some strategies for conflict prevention organization. And this slider you might be seeing over here, the hop one, right? It's essentially the same as the depth slider in Obsidian. So if I go to this node over here, right over here, um, depth is basically how far out should the node be connected to your central node essentially, or hop in that case, right? In the Obsidian-Assist tool. So if I zoom this out, like this is a depth of 1, right, or a hop of 1. But if you click it, like increase it to 2, you will see things that are like 2 connections away. So there is that. Yeah. So that is what a hop is over there. And like so normally, uh, if you just specify, if you just use the first, the auto node traversal mode or the fixed start mode, it will take the top 10 connected edges essentially. So top 10 connected nodes essentially. Like if you have like somehow 20 or something, it will still take like a top 10 it finds. So just to demonstrate this, I will hit enter, and yeah, see again. So like I mean, if you would notice over here, the context list is a lot longer. And why is that? So if I so suppose look at this causes of organizational conflict, right? This is something that was referred to in the graph version of the chat, but if you look at this over here in the basic simple drag one, this did not come up because over there it was just purely a semantic search or cosine similarity based. Over here, it looked at every single node that was connected to the node that essentially established that was the first node that was fetched via a cosine similarity search, which would be just a conflict management studies organization, and I can show that to you. So we have that node over here, that node over here, or node over here, and if you look at its connections, you will see that this causes an organization, causes of organizational conflict, etc. And all these things that popped up in its context are over here connected to it. So these all were included as context to while framing the answer for that question, right? And like suppose you want to specify your start node, like you don't want it to use that cosine similarity thing, and you are really sure about what your answer should be centered around. Then you have the option of like instead of letting it determine the start node, you can go over here and you can like select I want my answer to start with this. And in this case, I think like right now, since it will start off with the same node, the answer will be pretty similar. But like you can see the use cases of this, right? Like sometimes your cosine similarity might not be getting what you wanted to. Okay, so in those cases, you can like specify your start node, and like just to demonstrate, I will click on retry, and like since I have selected a start node over here, it will then use that as its starting node, but like the context and everything will be similar. So I think the answer also, I mean, the answer will also be similar. So yeah, emphasize on my goal extra, and if I click on retry again, yeah, see. So that is the second part of it, like where you have a fixed start node. Like the only difference between between auto node traversal and a fixed start node, is that in auto node traversal, it on its own tries to determine what the start node should be. Uh, Whereas in fixed node traversal, you are the one who specify where the reasoning or context building should start from. Yeah, this one is interesting, start to end part. And for this, I will be demonstrating it with between two nodes. So suppose like there's this another node. This comes from the organizational behavior textbook, right? This is about conflict management organization. And then there's another node that comes from the psychology textbook, which is personality psychology theories and development. And then over here, if you would see that there's like this, they talk about this 5-factor model, right? So yeah, and like suppose you want an answer that takes this and this both into consideration, but also like everything that like sort of connects them. Yeah. So that is what the start and end thing is. So if I remember, it was what 75 personality psychology, right? So if I come over here and I type 75 personality, 75 per oh, it has to be two underscores, my bad. 75 personality psychology theories and development. Yeah, I click on this and let me clear the chat over here. And let me select a question. Now, so how the 5-factor model can be used in conflict resolution. So yeah, let's try this out. Now, when you have clearly designated or selected your start and end nodes, in that case, it doesn't matter what your hop is, because what will happen is that if there's a connection between start and end node, it will take the shortest path between them, and it will try to use that to build its context. So suppose I type, how the 5-factor model can be used in conflict resolution, right? And just to emphasize, conflict resolution is not mentioned in the part where 5-factor model is mentioned. Like you can take a look at this, right? So they talk about Freud, how it's wrong and everything. But yeah, it's not mentioned anywhere. Yeah. So you type, okay, how the 5-factor model can be used in conflict resolution. You start off with the conflict management studies in organization, and then personality psychology, series and development, and like, everything in the shortest part, everything is included in the context. And then with that, the question or the query is answered. So you can just hit enter, and ta-da. So you would see it starts with this, what we selected as start, and it ends with what we selected as end, and everything in between that like connects them. Like this would have a connection to this, and this would have the connection to this, this would have a connection to this kind of connection to this. If they had a direct connection, then there would be nothing between them. Like it would be just this to this. So again, like even think about it, right? Like in case you don't like a certain connection, you can just go into your Obsidian, you can just go into Obsidian, into your Obsidian Vault, and you can like edit the connections, and see how, like according to how you think they should be connected. Basically, how you establish like a chain of reasoning or a chain of thought, kind of. Yeah. So yeah, let's see. Yeah, the five-factor model also has a big five by providing framework, understanding, personality traits, individual involved. These traits influence, okay, and then manage conflicts. The big five, like high openness, individuals high openness, and more imaginative, curious, more willing to under different perspectives, low openness, traditional approaches, less flexible, etc., etc. Yeah, like I mean, yeah. So yeah, so again, so this talked about the five-factor model. This talked about conflict management, and then these both were connected. Yeah, and yeah, so I mean, okay, and like someone might say it's saying conflict management, you're saying conflict resolution. So fine, let's change the question a bit. Let me clear this again. And as long as you have selected these, your context will remain the same no matter what you type. So that is something you can be sure about. Management. Um, how the five-factor model can be used in conflict management. I think it should be the same, but let's see. Um, yeah. So unlike conflict, different personalities are associated with different conflict resolution styles. For example, given individual high moodiness, institutions see conflict movement, they may be likely compromise and find much. Yeah, I mean it's kind of the same, like from what we have previously. But like, yeah. So yeah. Um, now let's see how this question would have been answered in a simple RAG chat. Like over here we are the ones who establish the context building kind of. But if you're in a simple RAG, and let me just clear this over here, and I paste this over here. Conflict management. Um, hit enter. Yeah, so over here you would see none of like every single one over here is from the organizational behavior textbook. It's not from the psychology one, right? So so I mean, and you might see that okay, it's still mentioning them, but if you read over here, right, while the provided text doesn't explicitly mention the five-factor model, and that so yeah, I mean, like in these specific notes, there is no mention of those provide these five, but like I mean, these are like this basic psychology, so the LM might on its own know these things, but yeah, like it didn't get that from the context, right? Like, so yeah, I think that sort of conveys what the graph version of the chat is. Yeah, thank you for watching. Do let me know about any questions. If there are any issues or something with installation or using, raise issues. Yeah. Thank you.